Oh, well, I mean, I've known Franny since I was about 20, which is a hell of a long time ago. So it was difficult not to, because anyone who's anywhere close to Franny's orbit, once she gets a project, you get sucked in. And my own speciality is and was climate change, and so I was incredibly useful to Franny to sort of to ground the film. And I've been doing a lot of work on the science for my own books, and so as my role became as sort of, I think it's on the screen as climate change supervisor, but essentially it was saying like what locations can we feature, what will be the climate change impacts that those locations will feature, you know, what degrees of change is realistic to see by 2055, you know, how can the film be structured in that sense. So it was you know, it was a labour of love in many ways, because we stayed up late at night and we argued over things you know, for many hours. And I think what's come out at the end was obviously hugely worth it, because it's probably the most powerful piece of, well, cultural discourse, if you like, on climate change that's ever been produced. Well, it was no first seeing it, in the sense of when you're involved in making it, you see lots of different incarnations, and it evolved a lot. I mean, it started as a documentary about the oil industry and the sort of the way that different people have different roles in it, and evolved into something very different. I mean, there was no sort of fictional, you know, the Pete Postlethwaite character never existed at the beginning, and that went through different incarnations, and it also in an earlier version was even more depressing than the final one. I mean, the actual release version is uplifting and positive compared to what went before. Well, the core message is that is really to sort of hit you with the reality of you know, the bigger picture reality. It's not sort of a changing a light bulb message or polar bears or any of the sort of conventional climate change narrative. And it's sort of take no prisoners, because it's really saying to you that you the viewer, are involved in causing this problem, and you the viewer have a responsibility to solve it. You know, it's not like you can sit back and just let this thing wash over you and leave the cinema and, you know, and go home and continue with your life. It does present you with that fundamental kind of challenge to your lifestyle and your role on this planet. And that's something that very few films dare to do. Well, I mean, the political potential of any piece of filmmaking depends on what people choose to make of it, how moving people find it, and how much of a distribution it gets. So that's to be seen, and it also depends on the extent to which the filmmakers and people who are involved actually try and facilitate that. And one of the criticisms of Al Gore's film, Inconvenient Truth, was that it left you with very little that you could actually do. And I think the reason for that was that no one really agreed on what we should be doing. You know, should we be campaigning to shut down coal-fired power stations? Should we be getting people to drive less? Should we be, you know, campaigning for or against nuclear power? I mean, this is where everything starts to fall apart, because people just don't agree. And I think that was the thing of its time. People have moved on now, and people really do realise that we're in such a critical, urgent situation that we pretty much need everything, you know, and it isn't just a case of either or. It's a case of there's a role for all of us to get out there and to not just to raise awareness, but actually to get politicians to take this issue seriously, to get laws on the books which actually mandate dramatic greenhouse gas emissions cuts within a very short timescale, which means that there's a need for hundreds of thousands of people to get involved. And hopefully this is the kind of film that will make that happen. Well, Copenhagen is a critical point. I mean, people will look back, future historians, if there are any, will look back and see that point in time as the moment when humanity had the choice of whether to act. I mean, you know, in the film, the Pete Postlethwaite character, he's looking back and he's saying we could have saved ourselves, but we didn't. And Copenhagen is the moment where we'll make that choice. And so the fact that the film gives us an advance warning, if you like, and gives us the opportunity to get involved and to change history before it's written is obviously a very powerful thing.